Joining me now is journalist and filmmaker Ami Horowitz. Ami, he's been convicted. He faces a maximum prison sentence of 25 years. That's highly unlikely. President Biden has said that he would not pardon his son if he was convicted, but will he change course now, given that Hunter could face a possible prison term?
Yeah, by the way, it is always remarkable to me to watch Biden from 3 years ago, listening to him speak, and Joe Biden now. God, the deterioration is so clear. It's amazing. Look, Joe Biden is in a bit of a pickle. He has to agree that this was the right decision, because he spent the last year talking about how if you say that the justice system doesn't work, you are undermining the U.S. democratic institutions, right? We remember that? Again, coming from a man who spent the last 3 years demonizing the Supreme Court, saying it's an illegitimate institution, and then threatening to pack it. So, look, this wasn't how open and shut a case was this, Rita? Let me tell you. This was done in Delaware, right? Wilmington, Delaware, his hometown. He won this town by 90%. Some context for you. Yeah, no kidding. Context. Putin won his election by less than that. That's how serious a player he is in Delaware, yet he was still convicted. It shows you this was really an open and shut, clear-cut case.
Well, it was all on tape, a lot of it. So there was so much evidence on that laptop that Hunter Biden had helpfully amassed for the prosecution. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that even that jury pool that is so heavily Democrat came back with this decision, and in very quick time as well. Now, here is a woman who was protesting peacefully outside the courtroom. She says she served 5 years after being found guilty of similar offences.
I'm out here because I lost my children. I lost my home. I spent 5 years in jail for abbreviated serial numbers.
And we saw President Biden make an unscheduled stop in Delaware to see his son Hunter and his grandson. Yeah, let's Hunter get the kid away from the grandpa. At least it's one child, one of Hunter's offspring, that the president is acknowledging. This is one of the things that has shocked me throughout this presidency, is that it is just so callous of the first family, not just Hunter Biden, but also Joe and Jill, that they talk about their grandchildren incessantly, and yet they don't acknowledge this little girl down in Arkansas. They've never met her. The father hasn't met her. He tried not to support her financially. And that seems to be just brushed over in the media. And I cannot imagine that would be happening if this was happening within the Trump family.
No, you're absolutely right. Of course it wouldn't. The double standard is obvious. They even sued to make sure the kid couldn't use the Biden name. Because if they did, you probably end up making money from the Chinese at some point. They don't want to give that piece of the pie away.
Good point. Now, Democrat Senator John Fetterman is drifting further and further away from his past political positions. He was once radically left, but now he says he's no longer a progressive.
Some progressives have criticized you for being a different senator than you suggested you would be when you were a candidate for Senate. What do you say to that?
Well, I wasn't. I was very clear for saying that for years I'm not a progressive, and I just identified myself as just a regular Democrat. So it really wasn't any new news. Now, 8 years ago, I was a progressive, but the situation's changed, and I've been very clear that I didn't leave that label. That label left me.
And that progressive label is now owned by the likes of these imbeciles marching on American soil, calling for Hezbollah, a terrorist group, to kill Zionists. Ami, how is that allowed to happen? I'm all for free speech, for protest, for peaceful protest, but when you're calling on terrorists to kill Zionists, which is what they were chanting there, that crosses a line, I would have thought.
Yeah, let's do that one first, and then we'll go back to Fetterman real quick because I have some thoughts on that as well. Look, this is no shock. This is not about Israel. It really isn't. This is really the anti-Semitism gets to be on full display. It's the quiet part out loud. Now, this is about the intersexual coalition, which has had institutional anti-Semitism built into it by definition. For people who don't know, this is important. Intersectionality is the idea that all victims are connected through their victimhood, and there's a pyramid of oppression. And the higher you up in the pyramid, the more you are an oppressor. So what that says to them, because it's a Marxist ideology, it says to them that Jews, because they are perceived by the left, by the intersexual coalition, to be on the higher end, if not the tippy top of that pyramid, by definition, they are the biggest oppressors. Therefore, they're allowed to call for the killing of Zionists and Jews because they are the fascist oppressors. Now, to get back to Fetterman, which I find endlessly fascinating. Rita, I am a full-on Fetterhead. I admit that, okay? Fetterman is somebody who the Democratic Party should be modeling themselves after if they want to win, right? Kristen Sinema, another example of somebody who was progressive, who moved to the center. She is now no longer running because she doesn't feel at home the Democratic Party. But they're not. They're leaning into the progressive label. Fetterman is an unbelievable case study of this. Look, he was a progressive. He, in fact, sought out the endorsement of the Democratic Socialist Party at one point. At one point, look, he has become a full-on Zionist, talking the border. At one point, he actually pointed to his wife's undocumented status to show his progressive bona fides. Fetterman's amazing. Fetterman himself has said, I ended up leaving the Progressive Party after my brain damage. I'm going to leave that one alone.
It's incredible, the transformation, and he referred to 8 years ago he's departed from those positions, but I think it's far more recent. Just even a few years ago, 3 years ago, some of those positions he seemed to hold, he's done a radical 180 turn away from them. So yeah, he has become one of the more rational Democrats, sort of the counter to the squad. Now, what about these protesters we saw outside the White House? There seemed to be little consequences for the way they defaced public property, desecrated monuments, attacked officers, and again chanted for intifada and for the killing of Zionists. Why is there this continued tolerance? The Biden administration occasionally comes out and condemns this sort of behaviour, but they're largely allowed to run riot.
Yeah, look, they're simply the administration simply does not want to continue having problems on their left flank. And that if they would start arresting people for things like that, they would have more trouble, and they already have. But unfortunately, what their miscalculation is, it's that kind of behavior which is losing them the election with the more important constituency, which is the independents. The independents look at this and they are disgusted by it. It reminds me of the Black Lives. Look, I was walking around. I went to every major Black Lives Matter riot and rally, and everywhere I saw was defaced, and I didn't see a single arrest of somebody who defaced property, federal, state, local property. It's the same idea. They simply do not want to piss off the left flank.
Ami Horowitz, you are always on the money. Thank you for your time this evening.
Always a pleasure.